me to just say, I don't like meat. Muhammad Abdul Qadri. Salam alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
It's 2 o'clock already. So do we have our hosts in the call so that you can start the preambles?
I'm not seeing Mubarak here yet, but I think all the speakers have joined. Yeah, Mubarak is not here yet.
Okay. Wow. LE&I section is 36 already. Wow.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Did you guys invite the mentors? You didn't invite the mentors. You should have invited them.
It's earlier night that answered that. So Mubarak is here.
Mubarak. You're muted.
Okay. Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I think I'm about 2 minutes late. I'm so sorry. Okay, I can see your money. I can see Zaynab. I can see 21 others. Let me see.
Even you can see Mohammed and too.
Yes, I can see Mohammed. Mohammed, do you want to join the panel?
I know he has given you the what do we call it? He gave you the
How much?
start.
Okay, Nusaybah is also here. And okay, Al-Ameen is here. So okay, all our panelists are on board. I think we can just wait for about 2 minutes. By 3:05 we can start the session.
Okay, so you can be talking to us. Anything. So
There are a lot of new people, honestly speaking.
Or you want Mohammed to give the opening statement?
No. I'm saying that there are a lot of new faces.
A lot of new faces.
We have new faces.
Brothers
Yeah. Both genders.
Oh, it's 2:05 p.m. already.
Yes, it is.
No,
it's 2:04.
I thought it should be like exactly 1 hour difference.
1 minute more.
My time here is about 2 minutes, like maybe a 2 minutes lag.
Yeah, Mohammed is cheating. He's cheating by 1 minute.
No, so it's the exact same time difference for me. But
it's 2:04 here. How come your own is 2:05?
One is 2:04. Mubarak's one is different.
Okay, my own is 3:04, but somebody commented that time is already 2:05 in Nigeria.
Sorry, that way you should update there. Oh, it's Nusaybah.
Yes.
I don't think to update what's called a time.
I don't know which part of Nigeria is she.
It's long, you understand?
What's wrong with
What do you understand, Mohammed? What do you mean?
You're fast.
Mubarak said 3:05. Then I was saying, it is 2:05 here in Nigeria, so like people will not get confused.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You
I didn't
understand?
realize that 3:05. Sorry.
Yeah, we understand. You know that
All
Ilorin
right.
is naturally slow, so they want to fast track things. So they'll catch up with Lagos and other places to the world.
What
So
do you mean, Mohammed? Well done,
Mohammed,
Okushe.
the
No, no,
minister,
let's find out.
Mohammed, the minister of youth just appointed is from Kwara, mind you. Your minister for the youth. Have you seen the notice?
no, not yet. Though.
Ah, it just came out. You see?
Today.
Yes, today.
I'm not in that notice.
What's the person's name?
Youth affairs or something. Sport, I think. Yeah, not the youth affairs and sports.
Okay, I think we can. I think we can start now. It's 2:05 already, and we already have about 30 people here. So I think we are ready and good to go. So I think for the opening prayer, I think we can just ask Muhammad to give us a quick opening prayer to start the session.
Now there are so many Mohammed. Which one now?
Muhammad Abdulkadir.
Afa Mohammed Abdulkadir. One of Aladra. Ó ti sálọ tó bá ti pé Mohammed
sorry,
Abdulkadir
that
jẹjẹ.
was me. Okay.
So where are you
I
been?
know. Sound cool. It's like a network like get.
Shut up and go ahead.
Okay. So Bismillah. I don't. This is unplanned. I don't know what to say. Thank you guys for for joining us for today's LE&I session. I understand the topic is about leadership. Sorry, let me watch it.
Opening prayer, not opening statement. Yeah.
Prayer. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. May today's session be beneficial to those of us on here, and as much as we should all, by extension to people in our network, that we are able to extend the teachings of this session to, and hopefully it's beneficial in our continuous prospects, be it job, academics, or social ventures, or other activities we find ourselves in. And may Allah put us back in the
Amen. Ashangam. Sheikh. Unitombe Adam Allah ayatak.
Amen.
So now, so next, I think that, I don't know if that is giving any opening statement before we start.
Well, Alhamdulillah, I think is to thank the host and all the panelists for accepting to be part of this. This is a very unique one. We have always invited the mentors. That's why I was asking if we actually invited the mentors to come and listen in. But I'm not sure. I've not seen any one of them. But maybe next time when we are doing part 2 of this. So I don't want to be the one to be the barrier from starting this wonderful session. So I wish the panelists all the best and the participants the very best in this session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for the brief opening statement. So yeah, I think since everybody is here, we can get started right away. So I think we all understand the purpose of this session. Basically, like Daddy has said, we've always been having mentors come to speak to us, but sometimes when you hear these people talking, you hear that this person is the MD of this company, this person has got his PhD like 10 years ago and things like that. It's sometimes a bit difficult to relate to their journeys. So we've decided to bring some mentees for us to share their stories of growth. People that are sometimes like around the same level of growth, the same level of age group, and they have stories that we can definitely relate to, things that that are at our own level. So we'll be able to like gain from them directly. And okay, this person, oh wow, this person also is also studying in Unilogi. Wow, I'm a student in Unilogi too. So if she can do it, me too, I can do it now. That kind of thing. So that is the benefit of having this kind of session. So for our four panelists, um, they are going to be sharing to us. They are in different diverse fields, as we know in NGM. There are people from basically all different types of fields, and so each of these persons have their own area of focus. So the first person is Omoniyi Fasasi, and we all know Omoniyi. Okay. Maybe some guests may not know him, but everybody knows Omoniyi. So and that is why he's coming here to talk to us about leadership, because he's such a leader and is very visible in NGM, and he has taken many leadership positions within and outside NGM. And recently, he also completed his postgraduate program in entrepreneurship, technology, and management. So, Omani will be talking to us about his journey into leadership, and Nusaybah too, who she also recently completed a BSc from the University of Ilorin. So, Seba Kalafik, and she is although she studied physiology in Ilorin, but she has a focus on psychology. So most people that know Nusaybah, that's how I first knew her too. I mean, back then I was in Unilag, and she was not in Unilag, but she was very popular among some of the people that I knew. And then Nusaybah was this girl that was always talking about psychology, about planning your life, about mental health and stuff like that. So, and she has like cultivated this kind of presence and even started a business with it more or less. So she's going to tell us about her journey into psychology, why it's important for us and things like that. And then talking to us about books is someone that is that is in a perfect position to talk to us about books. He's an author. He has written a book called Plan Z: Building Blocks for a Successful Life, and he's also a book lover. So many of us, we are always like, well, we always admire people that are able to read a lot of books, because some of us, um, we don't read that much. We don't have that kind of attention span and focus to read so much. So he's going to talk about us about his journey, his love story with books. And finally, we have Zaynab Solahudeen, who she's a medical student at Unilag, and also a poet at the same time. Medical student, poet, like. So how is she able to achieve such a feat? She's going to tell us about it, and tell us about her journey with poetry. So I think we'll take each panelist one after the other. We'll discuss with them. Then after each discussion, we have a Q&A from the audience, and then we can move on to the next panelist. So with that, we lead with the leader. So Omani, you can climb the stage now by turning on your camera so that we can all see the born leader in our midst.
Hi, assalamu alaikum to everyone, and thanks for the warm introduction.
Okay, so thank you for coming here to talk to us about leadership, Omani. We understand that, okay, that Omani, you're a leader, basically, and that's what you're here to talk to us about. So let me put you on the spot right away. How would you define leadership in your own words?
Okay, thank you for that question. I think leadership comes in different perspectives to different people. And why I say that is that I started my own leadership career when I decided that, I think when I saw a lot of things happening around me, and the decision was like, me, if you have to lead a family, that's basically it. If you have to lead a family, you have to be a leader that can lead diverse people, because your family will come with different uniqueness. Your kids will come with different uniqueness. If you don't manage them appropriately, there's a tiny line between them being the good person and the bad person. And that was pretty for me. So leadership is when you are able to inspire people to do what they probably don't know they are doing already, or guide them to do what they are supposed to do. That's the basic thing for me.
Okay, thank you, Omoniyi. I think I like the perspective you started from. Most of the time when we hear leader, we are thinking of our leaders. We are thinking of Tinubu. We are thinking of Joe Biden. We are thinking of people that are controlling such big resources. But you have brought it down to us. Okay, leading from a family level. So I think that's a very interesting perspective to take about leadership. So now you've talked about identifying this problem. Like, okay, if I'm going to lead a family, I need to be able to understand diverse people. So what did this inspire in you? What kind of action did this make you take?
Okay, so the action it made me take was uh, one way or the other. I think I stumbled into leadership because I have always been a back end guy, and I still like to be a back end guy. But one way or the other, I just get to be in the front line coincidentally. So my journey to leadership was when I was in year two. When you are this guy that you don't want to do a lot of things, you probably just be telling this one, why not doing it this way? Why not doing this way? And this senior of mine was in year five when I was in year two, was like, Nee, I think you should join this community. And I was like, no, I'm not joining this community. I'm not interested in it. I don't want to be in the limelight. I just want to do my thing. Prior to that time, I have always said that I think politics is also something I don't think I'm keen on. But I think I made a statement that made him interested in me. And the statement was, I wouldn't have to hold a political position before I can influence those in the political position to put things in place and probably even have the power over them. So it was like, me, I think you should join this community. And we moved on. I joined the community, and that was how I started. And the community, obviously, PADC. And being a
Oh,
volunteer,
mashallah.
I think all was just volunteering, from just random volunteer to holding one position to another position to another position. And how the trigger for me was that I wanted to make impact. I don't like it when things go wrong. I like it when we plan for something and it goes accordingly. Yes, things might not go accordingly, but you have the factor of safety that is guiding you to make sure that this thing still goes the way it's supposed to go to a very large extent. And you have contingency plans to curtail the emergencies that pop up. It's pretty much me trying to make impact, trying to live a life, a meaningful life for myself, and see things go smoothly around me.
Okay, thank you for that perspective of money. So for us in the house, you can be a backbencher and still transform into a frontline leader. It's not too late for your career. So before I jump to the next question, let me ask this intermediate question. So you started leadership while being a student. How did you manage these leadership responsibilities with your academics? Because sometimes there is this belief that, oh, if I'm doing extracurricular activities and all of that, my studies will suffer. So how were you able to manage this?
That's a very deep question. And I think I would reference my fifth year in Unilag when I was assigned to take the leadership position for PADC, that's the overall team. And then that time was finals. Project was there. I was doubling as a co-founder of SDA, and some other things were popping up. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do this. It's going to be overwhelming. But I didn't have a choice. The organization really needed me at that point. So I had to take up the leadership position. But along the line, things got hectic. COVID came. Everything just started mumbling. And I was like, oh, I never expected this. Is it during my time? Things are not going to go smoothly. Like I said, I like it when things go smoothly. So how I was able to go about it was I had to manage everything around me. I think it was then I realized that we actually have a lot of time, but we don't know we do. So first is I don't engage in conversations that are not of interest or at that time are not priority. I knew my priority and I drew the priority out. The priority was you can only have one priority, right? But fortunately, at some point in my life, it was alternating. So, when you're early in the finals, I knew that PADC was my priority because to the class and all that. So along the line, when I was able to put my team together, the next thing was now, okay, how am I going to go about making sure they are automated? That was another journey on its own that was really, really hectic, but I had to find a way around it. Then PADC, then school came, I had to also attend to school. So I think it's more of you knowing how to manage your time, knowing that at this point in your life, this is how you have to put things in place. At this point in your life, this is what needs your attention, and other things can just stay at the side. And then another scenario I'll give is, it is also a thing that you probably have. So I had to build a schedule for myself. This schedule was what helped me to know how the time frame, how the time. So if you probably call me during the time that you're not supposed to call me, I won't pick. Or what I now do is that probably when I'm going for solar or when I'm free, I return your call and all just because I wanted to manage my time efficiently. So that was how I was able to scale through holding a leadership position and also managing PAs.
Thank you for sharing that with specific examples on how you're able to, like, manage your priorities. So at the end of the day, we all have 24 hours in a day, and with these 24 hours, some people are managing like several companies at the same time, studying and doing all of these things. While some of us, we have just one responsibility, we are not able to like live up to it. So we have to like look at our priorities again and see how this can help us to um how we can achieve our goals. So let me jump to this question from Nusaybah. Nusaybah has a question for you in the comments. So she says that, I mean, you've talked about building a team in your last response. So this naturally flows into that. That how do you measure effective leadership in a situation where the individuals they are supposed to lead aren't committed or they don't show up as they are supposed to? How do you do it? Since you can't force anybody to do anything.
Exactly. I love how you ended it. You really can't force anybody to do anything, but I think you need to inspire them to do their stuffs. So why how I would use an analogy for this, because PADC started and it wasn't going well, and things were my team were fresh onboarded on the team, and they were not even doing things the way they were supposed to do things. So one thing I usually say is that as an individual, when you are leading a team, you need to know the strengths and weaknesses of each of your team members. I think I usually say it is better you do the hard work early enough than you doing that. If it takes me 2 months out of 10 months or 12 months to do the hard work, I prefer it to doing the hard work all through the 12 months. And how that goes is the first 2 months of me working with my team, I try to understand their weaknesses, build personal relationships with them, that even if I am not available, they will be able to make sure that the team runs smoothly. So the direct answer to your question is that you need to be able to build a connection with your team members. Yes, people say that you have to draw the line between when it's time to work and when it's time to play. I don't know how it happens. I don't know how I do it yet. But I think there was a time I had a conversation with someone and the person told me that, I don't know how you do it, but there's a way you have a blend between let's work and let's play. And that is a very, very important thing, because if your team members see you or your colleagues see you to be this person that is always uptight, they wouldn't want to relate with you on a personal level. They even want to share some personal stuff with you. And that is how you bond, because if they don't share those personal stuff with you, how will you be able to know that they can't get it done? So the way to measure effectiveness for me is that when I am sick or I am not available, the team can still run. That's just the basic truth. I am sick, I'm not available, the team can still run, and I can come back and I'll say, okay, what's up? Where are we? Let's move from where you ended. So that's the way I measure the effectiveness of the leader. Yeah,
I can see some people thank you for the response, Omoniyi. I can see some people are raising their hands. We'll take other questions immediately, like after we are done with the main part of the session. So maybe you can write your questions down so you don't forget, or you can just type them in the comments, and I'll pick them up once once we go through the main part of the session. So yeah, so what can you say are like the biggest lessons that you've learned being in leadership positions? What are the major lessons that you've learned?
there are many, a jaburata, because different teams come with different uniqueness, different problems, different attitude, different vibe, and that's because different
That's a lesson
families.
too.
That's because they come from different family, different exposure. So I think my one of the lessons I've learned is that you don't always have to be the person that talks the most on your team, right? Let your team have a huge say on how things go. After all, it's a team effort. It's not an individual that is put in the organization. Because now you can come to me and say this thing went smoothly because Ni is the team. But it's not Ni that did it. I didn't do it alone. It was a team. It was a team effort. And another thing is that I respect everybody on the team, even if you just drop one thing, even if you criticize, like you might be the most redundant person, you come and criticize. I think I respect you for that because you've also found a way um to tweak the way other team members are thinking about that thing you are trying to solve. So always listen more than you talk, and that way you'll be able to bring everybody's thoughts together and make a roadmap for them to execute. So another thing I've learned is that problems will keep arising. Like you can't dispute it. It will just keep arising. But you have to stand upright. You have to find ways that you can see through the problem. And next is, which I would say, is that I think you need to have a support system. That's me being honest with you. If you don't have a support system, you will break at some point in your life. One of the things that have helped me to this point in my life is support system. If because and again, I think I do it when I'm leading a team, there has to be a support system within that team that knows almost everything that is going on, even if everybody can't know what is going on. That way, I am able to make sure that when I'm not available, the person can put things in place, so the person can see things from my own perspective. And this is also as a result of me knowing the person's personality in terms of strength and weakness. So I think I will stop at those three. Probably if time permits, we can go on to say more. But yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for those. Um, yeah, you've shared a lot of ideas with us, and I can say that, like, each minute that you speak, I'm just like, wow, wow, these are just like, these are gems that are dropping. So now, the next question I'm going in now is going to be twofold. So, what are like the biggest challenges that you faced as a leader? So,
Managing
tell
people.
us the biggest challenge that you faced, that you overcame, and how did you do it?
Oh.
And the biggest challenge that broke your back, like you could not, like your worst experience, basically. Let me use Rashid's words. Your worst experience as a leader, something that you failed completely, and there was just there was just nothing you could do. So not those failures that you say that so the failure became a success, but you just failed. You just know you failed. So
Ah,
you give us one each.
that one deep gone. Tight. Okay, so I think one I am aware that I actually failed, was as a result of improper communication. And how this started was okay. So how this started was you remember doing the EdSARS thing um when my team members were like, we need to come out and say our own bit of it, and no, but they were not seeing things from my own lens, which is understandable. I had to. So I think that time was also a time, a not a so balanced time for me, because I was also under a lot of pressure trying to put things in place for the organization. Then NXAS come and I'm like, what the, like, why do you have to come at this point in time when the team is like, I know everybody's bollard was hot. They were like, no, we need to talk, we need to do this. But I communicated with so much brevity that there was an issue, like Kasala burst, and I couldn't mend it. The communication was just like, guys, we can't post anything now. Da 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 da. No, just calm down. I'll find a way around it and all that. But I couldn't tell them everything. Like I couldn't share the whole story why we can't post at that time. Then everybody just started on the group. The insult. I can never forget in my life. I was so close to leaving the group chat. I had to leave the place I was staying. I went home. I logged out for like 2 days.
Oh my
Later, they now
God.
started coming to people. I was like, nah, you said it, but it was my fault because there was a communication issue. Probably if I had communicated better from the onset, they would have seen it. And eventually, when I did, they could relate. So I think that one happened and it happened. So there was no way I could mend that. But yeah. The one that I know that one is the one that broke my back. Oh. The one I know that I was able to PADC when COVID started. Oh no. That time was a very, very, I don't know how best to put it. But it was really a tough time for me because 4 years, no, 3 years has been running smoothly. Now, fourth year knee and I do say this, probably those around will know that process is important, but nobody really cares about the process. People care about the result. So in this case now, PADC was supposed to hold, and PADC wouldn't be able to hold due to COVID. How I was able to go about it was that I had to make sure that the giver knows a bit about this and a few others. Someone on this call was just a very redundant person on that team that I was supposed to have removed, but I couldn't remove because I was like, probably we'll still be able to put things with it, but let's keep that name. So I think what I was able to go about that one was basically trying to reach out to most of my mentors, most of the board of trustees, getting their opinion, putting them on the same page that I am, letting them see things from my own lens. Because I couldn't even lead my team at that point. I was just there, like, let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. Everybody were talking about, just looking, attending several events that happened virtually. And PDC eventually happened virtually, first time ever. So that time was a time I would never forget in my life because I had like several downtimes, like proper downtimes, but nobody knew. Only a few people knew. But still, we really did that, so we have to carry on and make things work. So yeah,
Thank you for sharing that. I think one of the things that we find difficult is to share failures. But I think failure, when you share the places that you failed, those it also helps motivate other people that it's not every time that everything will go fine. There will always be those problems. So just to round up, any advice for we that we are coming from behind, that we also want to become leaders and everything. NGM is out there to build leaders. So what can you tell us as your fellow mentees to build our leadership capabilities, or just any random advice that you have?
I think my random advice is going to be that um, things will keep happening, right? And excuses will keep coming. But as someone that is holding a leadership position, please try to limit how much you tell people those excuses. At times, you might have a very valid reason for things happening, but still, like I said, nobody really cares, right? They care about the result. Just get the job done. Like how you do it. Yes, it should be ethical, but how you do it is something that would come after they've heard that this is the result. So my advice is limit how much of excuse, and this is to NDM mentees, all of us here. Let's limit how much of excuses we give when we don't deliver on our assigned task. I think another thing I would say is that we should all try as much as possible to seek help when the need arises. Yes, we are leaders, and our team leads or our team members can see us as leads, but don't be too bossy on your team, and don't let your team know that there's a boss. Let them know that we are all together in this, and we all need to make sure this thing work. That way, your team will run smoothly, and you yourself will be happy that you led a team because you'll be able to excuse yourself and chill when you want to, and come back and you guys are good. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing, Omoniyi. That was one part of the things I wanted to even say in my roundup, that about what was that again? About not being too bossy, yeah. Because that was something that I saw that came out throughout your entire story about, okay, communicating with people. You can't do everything on alone. So being a leader, it's not about controlling everything, but it's about allowing other people to blossom. So thank you very much for the insightful story, Omoniyi. So from Omoniyi, we've heard a lot of things about leadership. How leadership is not always about being in a high place, but it can be something as small as leading your family, about leading your clique, or leading your junior ones. And you don't need a political position in order to make an impact, in order to be a leader. You can you can be in NGM and not hold any position, yet you can be very active and still make a lot of impact once you have that leadership mindset. And you should know how to know how to manage your time, priorities. When you are working in a team, you should strive to create a connection with your teammates. Don't try to do everything on alone. Allow people to talk. And remember that problem when they finish. So there will always be problems, and there will always be reason to give excuses. But don't be the guy that gives excuses. Be the guy that gives solutions, and also have a good support system within your team, your mentors, your family. So thank you very much, Omoni. You've talked about a lot of things, and I believe that anybody that has been taking notes, like I've been doing, will leave here with a lot of interesting lessons. So so we'll move on to our next panelist. Oh, okay. Some people had a question. Some people raise their hands. Is there anybody that still has a question? In five, four, three, two, one. Okay, no questions. So we'll move on to the next panelist, inshallah. And that for us is Nusaybah. Nusaybah, Are you there with us?
Hi, Assalamualaikum. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, awesome.
Okay, Nusaybah said she will not be able to put on our camera, so we are just going to have this presentation here to take the place for us. So
Okay.
thank you for agreeing to speak to us about your experience, Nusaybah. So before we start with the stories, Nusaybah, tell us, what do you think? What does psychology mean to you? What, like, when you hear the word psychology, what comes to your mind?
Okay. So before I start, I would like to say thank you to the LE&I team lead for inviting me for this. I remember that when I told her that I had an accident, she was like, "Oh, she's going to remove me," and I was like, "No, no, I still want to do this because I don't know. I always learn something whenever we have these sessions, and then also being on this panel session, I know that I'm going to learn from other people and even from the things that I would walk through and share. I know that I would definitely Alhamdulillah, I'm glad that that's something positive. So yeah, Alhamdulillah, and thank you to the LE&I team and the team leader, Rahma. So yeah, when I hear about psychology, when someone asks me what does psychology mean, I think what comes to mind now is how in this modern times we have people talking a lot about it, like, oh, psychology is basically, oh, how you think, how you feel, and just how you deal with your emotions. I think that's the first thing that comes to mind when somebody asks me about that.
Okay. Thank you for that definition. So, what psychology is about how you deal with your emotions. Okay. So, studying physiology and studying psychology, where do you think those two fields overlap?
Oh, okay. So the thing is, for the longest time, I wanted to be a medical doctor. Yes. So when I finished secondary school, and I remember that year I applied to UI for their MBBS. Anybody that knows medicine in UI knows how intensive it is, right? And I think that was the year where there was no post-UTME. So I didn't even get in at all. Like they're just like, no, like no admission. They didn't even give me anything else. And that was such a big blow to me because I was like, I'm a smart girl. What do you mean you're not going to give me admission for MBBS? And then after that, my parents didn't want me to stay at home at all. So I went to do the IGMB program at the ABU's IGMB program at Fontois, School of Basic and Remedial Studies. So I went there, and I think somehow that's how like my intentional journey into psychology started, because fast forward to growing up, when I was still like in primary secondary school, I was reading my mom's medical thrillers, and I wanted to be a forensic pathologist. Then at some point I wanted to be a forensic psychologist. At some point I wanted to be a psychiatrist. So you can see the pattern. Like I just wanted to do something with uh mental health and all that. So fast forward back to SBRS, and that was when I started taking personal development seriously, because I'll not lie to you, I struggled a lot with not getting admission when a lot of my friends did, and it made me question, okay, so who really are you? Like, what is it that you know if you cannot even get admission into uni? And that's how it started. I remember, for people who might know someone called Lain Kasani, she's on Instagram. She's like this self transformation expert. I remember I was having a conversation with her one time, and then I was telling her that I think like this whole psychology self help, I think is bullshit, because what do you mean that? Like at that point, I don't even know how to explain it, but it just felt like, okay, this is nonsense. But then the more I began to read, the more I began to like take courses. I said, oh, okay, this actually makes sense. Like psychology is something I'm very interested in. And for physiology and psychology, I got admission to study psychology before I did for physiology. So I applied to IOU, that's the International Open University by Sheikh Dr. Bilal Phillips. So I got admission and I started that, and it's been a very interesting journey. I'm in my last semester of a 4-year program. And then I realized, okay, you know what? Medicine is not for you any longer. Like maybe medicine is not for you. There's so much else that you have to do, because 2017, 2018, I volunteered with the two biggest mental health organizations in Nigeria, Mani and She Writes Woman. And I learned so much, and I decided that, okay, this is actually the kind of work I want to do. I feel like for people who might be here, maybe you're not in uni and you're trying to get admission, or you're in uni and then you're studying something else that maybe you didn't want. I think my advice to those people would be that explore different options, right? Do a lot of volunteering, and who knows, you're going to find something else that catches your interest. So after that, after getting so much experience in the mental health field, meeting so many stakeholders, I decided that, okay, this is what I want to do. In 2018, I started my own community organization for Muslims, where we provide mental health education and support for Muslims living with mental health conditions and like their caregivers. So I started all this, but then I still needed to I still needed to have the traditional paper, right? I still needed to go to the traditional university, because we're in Nigeria and all, and I still have very traditional parents, no matter how supportive they are of everything I do. So the first the first time I applied for pharmacy, because my mom wanted me to do that, and then I didn't get it. And that experience was a very funny one, because I already started going to pharmacy classes. I spent like a month there, and then apparently they were supposed to move me, and then something went wrong. They couldn't move me, so I was stuck with what jam gave me, and that was agriculture. And I was like, nah man, definitely not doing this. And then that again is another story of surrender that we're not going to get into. So after that, okay, that year, and this is why I believe like everything is purposeful. My mom was like, okay, you know what, just do. Yes, I would have been a farmer. So yeah, my mom told me, you know what, you're already in the school system, just do this agricultural science for 1 year, and then we'll see what happens next year. So I did agricultural science for a year, but then that year, I had a roommate that was studying physiology, and then we would always have conversations. I'll be like, "Oh, okay, tell me about your course. Oh, you mean you're just doing like preclinical stuff? Not you're not doing the clinical where you go to the hospital, but you're doing the preclinical stuff." I say, "Oh yes." We would talk about embryology. We talk about so many things, and then I thought to myself, you know what? This is not a bad degree to have, because at that point I was like 80% checked out from MBBS, right? So I decided, okay, I'm going to do physiology. And this time around, when I applied again, because I used like direct entry, I did my IGMB program. So I was applying to 200 level each time that I applied. So the second time, I was like, okay, you know what? We're definitely going for physiology. And Alhamdulillah, I got the physiology. And in a way, for me, I think the physiology that I'm studying is just okay, basic mental basic medical science, right? So I'm learning the basics of what health is all about. And to me, it still it, yeah, English. It connects to psychology because physiology is about like your physical health, right? And then we have psychology that talks about mental health, and how the two in alignment is just like an optimal being. It creates for an optimal being. So just learning the whole um okay. So learning the whole body systems has been very, very insightful. And my favorite courses have been the ones that have to do with neurobiology. So we have neurophysiology 1, neurophysiology 2, autonomic nervous systems. So yeah, I think for me that's how everything connects, and that's why I'm where I am today at the intersection of physiology and psychology. So
Okay,
yeah.
so can we say you're a medical doctor now because you've learned about physical health, you've learned
No,
about
I'm
mental
not.
health?
I am not, because medical doctors, medical students, I have so much respect for them because they do so much learning, they do so much reading. And to be honest, I don't think I always say this to my friends that if I'd gotten MBBS, I probably would not be doing like all the things that I'm doing right now, because I would just be laser focused on going through that traditional part of getting your MBBS degree, because most medical students will tell you that you really cannot do too many things and still be a very good medical student, because medicine takes a lot from you. So, there is, how will I put it? Rejection is redirection. So I didn't get MBBS, and a few years ago, I did not understand why. But now I'm here today, and it all just makes sense that, okay, you needed not to get the admission to be able to go on this journey and be where you are at today.
Thank you. I like that line. I didn't get rejected. I got redirected.
Now,
Mashallah.
yeah.
Sorry, this is not part of the record. I think everybody else can close their ears. But you talked about the link between physiology and psychology. Is there a link between agricultural science and psychology? I hear people talk about how food can solve mental health problems.
Funny enough, yeah, there's another funny story for that. I remember I was told to go to the VC's office for something at the point where they wanted to change from agriculture to um that first year they were going to move me from agriculture to pharmacy. Yeah. So I was told to go to the VC's office, and then I was telling him that, sir, you know what? I'm actually interested in mental health. And then he said, agriculture is also related now, that you're going to, like, when you eat good food, you'll be happy. And I was like, what do you mean, sir? What do you mean? It was so, like, yes, there is a connection, because of course when people eat well, that also contributes positively to their mental health in some way. So I guess there is a connection, but I don't really care. I don't really care about that connection.
Okay, Nusaybah does not care about that connection, but Rashid cares about it, Muhammad cares about it, I care about it. So before you go to Nusaybah with your mental health issues, please eat first. Very important. So
Yes, it.
yeah, so to the next question, how has your involvement in psychology, learning about psychology, dealing with mental health issues, how has it shaped the way you think generally?
Oh, wow. That's a very, very deep question. Wow. How has it shaped the way I think? I think for people who study psychology, or who are interested in any form of psychology or like mental health, I think one thing that those people have is that they are very self-aware. Like, whether you like it or not, you're going to learn about yourself. You're going to learn about how to relate with people. It's a whole lot of personal development, in my opinion. So I would like to say that, okay, for anybody who knows me, or like, often I even get the how will I put it? I get the compliment in quotes that I'm very self-aware. So I think that has been a consequence of my exposure into like psychology, mental health, and everything. I remember last year when I was seeing a therapist, she said something about, oh, you say, but you are very self-aware. And I was like, yes, like I am. But then it's a curse and it's a blessing, because it's a blessing because you know that you can identify your shortcomings and you can work on them. You know that, okay, you're a work in progress. You understand many things that a lot of people might not understand. But then it's also a curse because at some times you just want to be normal. You want to like make mistakes and not hold yourself, how will I put it, like don't take yourself too seriously. Sometimes you want to make mistakes like everybody, and like, sometimes there's this things that people do subconsciously that they don't even realize, and you be like, what? Yes, exactly. The Lulu sometimes is the Solulu. Of course, like there's some things you want to just be like deleted about, like, I wish I did not know these things. But you know them. And then because you're very self-aware, you know that, okay, I can't just leave it as it is. You have to work on it. So yeah, personal development mostly for me. I feel that that has been like a very huge highlight or like consequence of me getting into psychology and mental health and everything else surrounding it.
Wow, thank you for that. Your answer was even deeper than my question, really. I've never heard anyone talk about self-awareness being a blessing and a curse. I've always thought about it as, wow, this is like the Zen state, like the ultimate avatar state when you actually, become very self-aware. And yeah, I didn't think of it as having its own shortcomings. That's something I'm going to think about at home now. So now you talked about how engaging in this psychology has helped you become self-aware on your own. So, but what about the rest of us? Not all of us really have this same level of passion for psychology that are going to volunteer for mental health organizations. Some people have passion for other things that serve humanity. Some have passion for leadership, some for peace, some for money, some for food. So we can still maintain this. So I'm thinking that we can still have this passion while still like taking the benefits of the whole psychology paradigm. So how do you think that we can become more psychologically informed and self-aware? What should be our role as people generally when it comes to this?
Oh, okay. If I understand your question correctly, you're asking like how can people be self-aware without necessarily going into psychology, yes?
Yeah, so be self-aware and be psychologically informed, be informed about mental health things.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think it has to do with like, how we're all on this journey of self-growth. Like we're all on this journey of like, okay, I'm trying to get to self-actualization. When you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, so you're trying to get like the ultimate where you're like, oh, you're at the best possible version of yourself, right? And then you don't necessarily have to go into psychology to learn how to do that. You just have to work on yourself. When they say, oh, work on yourself, identify your shortcomings, work on how to improve them. So basically, I feel for most people, like not going into psychology is really not like there's nothing to it, to be honest. The people that are in psychology are the ones that sort of, okay, they do the research and then they make it easy for other people who don't want to do all the hard work to learn how to develop themselves and how to be better. So first things first is, oh yes, I was just about to say that, Rashid, thank you. Self-evaluation. You have to evaluate yourself. Where are you right now? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are the things holding you back? How can you improve, right? There's what do they call that tool? I forgot saying. Okay, you should do a SWOT analysis, something like that. So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And then when you learn that, you think to yourself, how can I build on my strength? How can I get better at these things? Because many times people tend to focus on their weaknesses and then they ignore their strengths. But I'm sharing now that capitalizing on your strength and really working on improving your strength will take you further than you can imagine. And then you look at your weaknesses. Some weaknesses are just weaknesses, right? You don't have to do anything about them. For example, I don't know how to draw. Like I cannot draw to save my life. And I could spend all my time trying to learn how to draw, and I'll probably never be really good at it. Or I could just look at some strengths I have and then focus on getting so good that I can't be ignored with those strengths. But then when it comes to like weaknesses, maybe that has to do with like your personality, emotional intelligence, how to relate with people, you know that those things you need to work on them. And how do you work on them? Maybe by reading a book that just summarizes, maybe a psychologist writes a book, right? And then they summarize all the lessons, or like, oh, okay, these are tips, these are tricks that you can use to get better. You read them. Or even if you don't like reading books, you watch a TEDx talk, you watch a YouTube video, you take a short course on LinkedIn, whichever it is, you do that, and then you try to apply the lessons. And then as you get better, you reevaluate yourself, you improve. So that's why I said it's a lifetime journey, right? The goal is to like achieve that best possible version of ourselves, or to die trying. So every time you're evaluating yourself, you're identifying where your shortcomings are, you're seeking to improve them, and so and so and so the journey goes.
Okay, thank you very much for those tips, Nusaybah. I think you'll find them very handy. Read books, do self-evaluation, continuous self-evaluation, keep getting better, or die trying. Actually, we'll definitely get die trying, because I don't think anyone will be listening to say, I've reached
Yeah.
my best level. So, yeah. Any other tips for us? Any general tips, advice for us?
Okay. I think my advice to everybody would be to be gentle. Be gentle with yourself. Often we're very hard on ourselves, especially when we do the self-evaluation and we realize that we have a lot of shortcomings. You're human. Of course, you're not perfect. Be gentle with yourself, give yourself grace, but then also hold yourself accountable with love. And sometimes hold yourself accountable with like harshness, because there's a very thin line between giving yourself grace and being how will I put it? What's the exact word? Like falling short and not holding yourself accountable. Like there's a very thin line between that. So you have to be mindful of that line. And also, like, as you extend grace to yourself, as you hold yourself accountable, also learn to extend grace to other people, because you don't know what it is that their shortcomings are and how they're struggling, or what they're even doing to improve. So yeah, I think that's the advice I would give to everybody here.
Okay, thank you very much, Nusayba. Does anybody else have any question for Nusayba? Okay. So I think we can be ready to move to the next person. The thing I've loved most about these first stories, the fact that there are things that we can relate to. About, oh, you tried to apply to school, you didn't get admission, or they gave you a course you don't like. Well, how should you react? I really like how Nusayba has addressed that, and also Omoni has also talked to us about how being a backbencher, but still deciding that, okay, yes, I need to. Every one of us here is planning to, like, lead a family at one point in time, and then, so how can we do that? So okay, I think there's a question here for Nusayba. So Nusayba, I think you can go ahead.
Yeah, that's why I was raising my hand. So Muhammad is asking, when you're extending grace to others, how do you define what the limits are? And I think this is where having boundaries comes in. So you need to set personal boundaries that work for yourself, and then they also work with how you relate with other people. So you're extending grace, but then you're extending grace in such a way that it resentment start to set in. But then when you have personal boundaries, and you let people know that, okay, yes, these are my boundaries, right? Whether you say them or people are just aware of it, you can extend grace up until when they now start to pass that boundary. And when people pass boundaries, sometimes it might be unintentional. So you tell them. right? I believe very much in communication, like clear communication with people. Have difficult conversations, right? So you have the conversation with them. Okay, I did not like that you did this. Please do not do it again. Or you said this and I felt uncomfortable. I would appreciate if you do not say that in the future. And then if they say it again, then say, like, I feel like giving people three chances or like two chances is good, because okay, maybe the first time they did not realize they made a mistake, the second time they did not realize, but then that third time that like you're looking for my trouble, and then at that point you're able to now, like, okay, this, I'm not extending grace anymore, and then you react or take certain actions that would reflect that choice. So I hope that answers the question.
Well, I think it answers the question, and I believe Muhammad will agree too. So three is the magic number. Give people three chances, and know your own personal boundaries so that people don't cross it. Thank you very much, Nusaybah, for taking us through this session, telling us about your story, how you bounced back, how you went back and forth, and before you discovered your niche. So I think this is a lesson to us all that we should we should be open minded and we should explore. So I really like that part of your story where you also said, okay, that when you first learned about psychology, you went to read more about it, take more courses about it. That echoes the story of many of us. When we hear of this psychology, mental health, and we just be like, Gen Z people. But there is actually substance behind it, and you actually have to just learn to understand it. So yeah, so the next speaker for us here is Al-Ameen. So can Al-Ameen climb the stage for us kindly, please?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please, can you kindly turn on your camera? Let's so that we can focus on you as you speak. So Al-Ameen
Yeah,
is
okay.
here. Al-Ameen is an author, and he's also a CEO, co-founder. Is he a co-founder? Just a CEO of GrowthRun. Uh, he is also a writer, and he's here to talk to us about his story with books. So, is it a good place for you to have your camera or not? Or would you prefer to turn it off? I can see you're shaking a lot.
Uh, yeah, I'm in the car, so just I think if you'd allow me to put it off, I'll be fine with that.
Okay, it's not okay. It's not a problem. You can put it off then.
All right, thanks.
Um. Okay. So before we go into the main questions, Alamin, how many books do you read in a month?
Well, I try to aim for one per week, right? So that makes it like four in the month. So, but I mean this year I've been reading less of books, more of articles now, and a lot of research papers actually. I think my interest has just shifted, and yeah,
You're doing a
my
PhD.
orientation also. What did you say?
Are you doing a PhD?
No, no, no. I'm a student of psychology, just like just like Nusaybah.
Oh, really?
But I enjoy getting knowledge from the roots, right? So most of these authors themselves, they get their ideas from research papers. I know Malcolm Gladwell really well. Like that, I know that he does that really well. He basically just combs through research papers, psychological research papers, and he picks up the idea. Daniel Pink also does the same thing, and these are well-established authors. So I just enjoy going to the roots and get trying to get the ideas from there.
Wow, it's very interesting to know that people that are not doing PhD are reading research papers. I think that's very interesting. Wow, I think this session has gotten us to a good start. So, so you told us that authors that that some big authors they read research papers, and that's why you decided to start reading research papers. So, what do you think has changed from when your focus used to be on reading books, and now that it is on reading research paper? What would you say has
I
changed?
th yeah, I think it's the goal, right? It's what I want to get from the reading. So right now I'm working on something. It's a like a framework for personal growth, but based on like Islamic principles, like completely based on Islam, and trying to look at the ideas of answering the self-discovery questions and all of those things, but then looking at it from what does Islam actually say about this? How what does Allah expect us to be as human beings? It's basically me trying to write Plan Z again, but now from a totally Islamic perspective.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's the goal that determines like the idea or the kinds of things that I read or what I read. So there was a time, by the way, you mentioned Growth Run. Growth Run is there's actually a pause to Growth Run right now. It's a project that I took a stint at, but things didn't really work out very well. So we're exploring different things, other things now. So when during that time, when I was still deep into that, I was reading a lot of business books, right? There was a time where I was reading a lot of psychology books, a lot of books, that would help with personal growth. There was a time I was reading books about developing cognitive abilities. I read A Whole New Mind by Daniel Pink, Outliers also by Malcolm Gladwell, Originals by Adam Grant, just it just depends on the goal that I want to achieve. And then I try to find the kinds of books that can help me achieve those goals.
Oh, I think that's actually very insightful. um, about goals. I have a question about how we can become better readers and more consistent readers, and I think that point has already started to answer those questions. But I think we'll come back to that later. But now so let's start from the scratch now. I just wanted to like set the tone before coming to your story from the scratch. So what can you say, like how did you get into books? Like, when did you start reading books? What inspired you to first build a love for books?
It's an interesting journey because I never really liked books, actually, because I remember my mom would buy us storybooks, then my sister and I, but then I would not read it. She would buy maybe a few of them, but I won't read them. The only books that I used to like reading or enjoy reading was academic books, like textbooks. I used to read textbooks a whole lot. But then novels, I'll look at my friends that read novels, that read books. I'm like, how do you guys do it? But then, so when I first met my mentor, the very first conversation that we had, like physically, he mentioned that when I told him this exact thing that I don't like reading non-academic books, and he was like, no, you have to read, as a leader, and just trying to tell me all of these things. And the first book he recommended was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. So it turned out that I actually had that book. I got it from one of the debate competitions that I went to, but I never really opened it. So so he asked me to read the book, and it turned out that that book was actually exciting, right? And I found it very nice. I remember I made a lot of jottings in my book and wrote down a lot of things. And the interesting thing about books is that good books actually is that good books would point you to the direction of the next book that you would read. And something in Dale Carnegie's book pointed me to read Willpower by Roy Baumeister. That's the title of the book, Willpower. And Willpower is a book based on psychology, and it's it talks about the idea of discipline, but discipline from a psychology perspective, not just you have to be disciplined, you have to do this. What are the biological processes that happen in our brains and in our bodies that makes us less disciplined, right? And how can we improve on this? And I remember I read the PDF of this, and I remember reading this book, and almost it was almost as if I was jumping on my seat. Like whenever I read this book, like wow, wow, wow. Now I know so much of this, right? And that book pointed me to another book. he pointed me to Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg. Atomic Habits was written by this guy. What's his name? I can't remember. James Clear, yeah. But this is Power of Habits. Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg. And Power of Habits too was largely based on psychology. And wow, that was also so exciting. And so that was how the journey started. Like I felt, oh, so books are this interesting, right? And so I went from Power of Habits. I found The Eighth Habit by Stephen Covey. I found it in one library like that. I read it. It was so massive. And so that was where the love came from. And from there on, I just I just started devouring. I would download ebooks from pdfdrive.com, and then later on I started buying physical copies of books also. So yeah, that was kind of how it started.
Wow, thank you very much. That was a very interesting story. You've taken us a lot. So okay, Nusaybah has a question that you've only been reading. You only talked about self-help books. That do you read fiction? Do you read other genres of books?
I don't. I want to change that because I plan to write non-fiction. I plan to write fiction also. Stories are a very, very great way to pass your ideas along. I plan to write fiction, so I don't have a choice. I don't like reading fiction at all. I don't think I've really sat down to read a fictional book. It just doesn't move me.
Oh, that's interesting. So I guess reading the book is always about for you. It's always about the goal that you're driving towards.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so just about reading books again. Muhammad has a question. He said, "How do you select your papers, your research papers, to ensure that you are reading authentic papers? And where do you find papers and book recommendations?"
Oh, okay. The for the papers, they're actually quite available. Although I said I'm a student at IOU, we have free access to JSTOR, JSTOR, and I think Oxford Press. So these guys they contain so many journals and so many research papers. So I have free access to that through IOU. Uh, Another way is Google Scholar. You'll be surprised that some of these papers are actually available on Google Scholar. And when you search for a topic on Google Scholar, I think I'm not sure now, but with my experience so far, the algorithm kind of gives you the most reliable results first in terms of credibility. But what the other things that I check for is how many times has this paper been cited? The number of citations that a paper has is a very, very great way to know the qualification, to know the credibility rather. And yes, I find it's like the Pareto principle. It's like 80% of the papers are written by 20% of researchers, right? And what I'll find is that, especially for the research papers that I've been like going through recently, I've been finding the same set of people, Human, Keshavazi, you know, Coyle, your Abdullah Rothman, a couple of them. And I just that same circle that keep writing and keep writing. I've done a whole lot of research in this field. Amber Hark, GH Rasul, all of these people. So when I see papers from them, I know that, oh yeah, this guy is credible. Or when I see paper from someone that they wrote a paper with generally, and then I try to focus on this number of citations too. That's a very good indication.
Wow, I didn't expect this conversation to go into research papers, but I'm glad we are learning a lot from your
Sorry.
experiences. And I think the last point you made is also something that I've also learned about reading research papers. So, especially for those of us that are in our final year, we're writing projects. When you have your field that you want to that's one advice that they give. That when you have the field where you are researching on, find the most important paper in that field. So in each field, there's usually like a main author, a main authority that
Yeah.
really leads to that field developing. So when you find that person, every other research paper they are reading will stem from that main research paper. So
Mm.
that is one idea that I think we can find very useful. So thank you for sharing your ideas about how you get research papers, Al-Ameen. So yeah. So how did you now get into the idea of how did you develop the idea of writing your own book?
So the way I got into writing the book was actually the same as the way I got into reading at first. It was through my mentor. And the way he talked about, I mean, you have to write books. You would think you would think that writing a book is just like writing a 400 word essay, but he just keeps, you have to write. What book are you working on? Can you imagine someone just calling you or just walking up to you and just asking you, what book are you working on? I'm like, but that push was always there. And so I just had to, like, okay, yes, I don't have a choice because it was just going to get on me if I wasn't going to write any. So I just had to start writing. And apart from that, I was also that was a big part of it. That was a very big part of it, right? But apart from that, I I was also seeing some of the things that I learned, that I was able to, like, learn and be part of witness other people do. And I was feeling that, wow, there are lots and lots of people out there in the world that do not have access to this kind of information. And me having access to it is not because I'm better than them. It's just because I have access to it. That's just it. I'm just lucky. Alhamdulillah. So it made me, that also gave me like a kind of push to say, how do I make this available to as many people as possible? And one of the best ways to do that is to write a book. So that was another push for me. And the last push, which of course I wouldn't be shy to mention, was that I was looking at the perspective. So yeah, when we buy some books, yeah, we would see on their front cover, so million copies sold, and all of those. I'm like, and so some of these books put the cost of the book on the back cover, and I'm like calculating in my head, $36 times 20 million. Ah, but yeah, yeah, that was also another another motivation. But of course, I mean, I later learned that most of these guys get book deals and they've already cashed out even before. Like, they don't depend on how many people buy the book. These publishers have already paid them upfront and they get royalties and stuff like that. But for me, I would have to do a lot of self-marketing and all that. But yeah, those were the three major motivations.
Okay, so how did it now turn out? Like, the especially with the aspect of earning money from the book. How did the process go? Finding a publisher. Just just a little. I know if we ask you to tell the full story, that will take another session. So just a summarized version of the story of how the process went from deciding what kind of book to write to writing it and getting it published.
Yeah, yeah. So deciding what kind of book to write, that was no issue at all. That was no issue at all because it was what I was learning at the time, what I was being exposed to at the time. And in fact, writing the book itself didn't take me so long. I wrote the bulk of the entire book in 2 weeks. And it's just now that I realized that when I that's actually very, very short. I didn't have I wasn't really seeing it as anything. But when I tell people now, they're like, I wrote in 2 weeks. But the reason, thinking about it back now, the reason I feel I was able to do that is that the things that I wrote in Planty were things that I thought of like almost every day, very, very well. Like things that I would listen to, things that I would hear, things that I would, talk to people about almost every day. So all that was just required was for me to just sit down in front of my laptop and just type these things out. So that was why it took me not so much. Of course, it took me like a month to get I added a few chapters, and yeah, I added that the last chapter also. Why this book may fail. So yeah, writing wasn't so much of a big deal for me then. And so the getting the idea of so how to go about this. My mentor that I was mentioning, he also published a book, and it was self-published. So I didn't even know there was a thing like that. I would read about these authors that we heard of, authors that publishers just give them book deals and stuff like that. For for someone like me who's still a small boy, I don't have so much, should I call it, credibility now. You just have to go ahead and publish on your own, and I was walking through the streets of Lawasin when I wanted to get the first few copies of the book, uh, and to get people to try to get find the best printer to get that, and you just have to get involved and know how these things are going to excuse me, to get how these things are actually done. So uh I was actually very, very lucky because I got a grant to for the publishing, and they covered 75% of the cost. That was what sped it up also. And since then, I've been majorly partnering with schools, secondary schools, and the thing is, what I wasn't expecting was that the wide applicability of the book. It's just I've met uh someone that's a professional already that came across the book somewhere and read it and said, "Oh wow, this book really helped me." And I've seen 12-year-olds also say the same thing. So it's just, well, lately I've not really been putting in the so much work into marketing and doing stuff like that. But it's a very exciting journey. I think everybody should try. Just try. Maybe even if you're not going to publish, just try to get on it and see what you can make out of it. It's very exciting. And the funny thing is, you do have content to write, right? Sometimes you may feel like, what do I know? Just write whatever it is that you know, write it.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you think that we can find like other ways of starting? Like, okay, I have content, but maybe I should post it on social media instead of writing a book. Do you think it has the same or a similar effect?
Yeah, yeah, actually it does. It does. There's there's a there's a very it depends on like different things too, cause the audience you want to write for, but I don't think they can replace each other. I may be wrong. This is just my own opinion. I have nothing to prove it, but I don't think uh articles can replace books. I think they have different impacts and they have like different ways they can help a person. So I write articles too. I call it thinking out loud, right? But I'm even thinking of maybe writing a book with that title. Yeah, sometime, which is just me just giving out some things that I'm thinking about on my Medium page. But I mean, by any means, like I said, this is just my own opinion. I have nothing to back it up. But by all means, we should try to write articles, uh, social media posts, create social media pages, and do all sorts of things. It's also a very great way to make impact on people. Yeah. So I think that's my opinion, Sha.
I mean, your opinion makes sense. You're an author, so you have the right. You have the right to speak about writing books. So, how has the whole journey of writing books? How has it changed? How has it changed you? Like, how has it changed your thinking, your life, or anything? What changes have happened after you wrote the book, after you published?
So yeah, one thing that happens when you write and you publish is that people would expect you to know about the things that you wrote. And so quite naturally you'll be invited to come talk about it. And so I've always enjoyed talking. Like I really, really love talking, public speaking and doing all that. So getting like speaking opportunities was like, oh yeah, let's do this. But uh I have I've also gotten to experience like people in different ways. And I've over time learned the weaknesses of Plan Z, like the weaknesses of the book itself, and the areas that could have been improved and the areas that we could work better on. Um, it's it has also served as a compass for me. Like Panzi has served as a compass for me. You know, a few days, a few weeks, I think it's a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago, I was there's the intro of Plan Z. There are some questions that I asked there. Those are like there were questions that I asked way back then when I was still in secondary school, and I was trying to like, what is the purpose of life? What does success mean? How can I I put those questions there in the introduction page. But I actually found myself asking those same questions recently. And I was reading Plan Z. I was going to a speaking to a school. A friend and I were invited to come speak, and I was reading Plan Z because their school adopted the book. So I was reading one of the copies, and I opened to the introduction, and I read that particular thing, and I told him, I said, "Toha, I've, I've actually been asking myself the same question, and again, so it gives you the opportunity to self-reflect, and I would read some parts there, and I would be like, you cringe, of course, when we read something that we've written before. But then I would also read some parts, and I'll be like, makes sense, makes sense, makes sense. So it's given me the ability to self-reflect, to also it has forced me to try and develop myself because you have to know what you're talking about, and speaking is much more spontaneous, right? In Plan Z, in writing Plan Z, you can delete, you can, go back, come back to it. But when you're speaking, you can't unhear, people can't unhear what you've said, right? So you have to be well developed and know what you are talking about. So it has really forced me to. Again, that's one of the reasons why I'm very very excited about psychology, and yeah, it has also given me my new direction, like what I said about like trying to develop a framework of personal growth that's based on Islamic principles entirely. So it's yeah. That's let me let me stop there.
Talking about the weaknesses of Plan Z, so are you planning to write the second edition?
Yeah. So the second edition of Plan Z is actually going to be this one. That's like personal growth from an Islamic perspective.
Perspective.
So
Okay.
what I noticed was that I'm going to use the analogy of a maze. Like most of us are in a maze. When I say maze, I don't mean like the Matrix or this conspiracy theory kind of thing. I'm not a fan. I mean a maze, just an analogy. Don't think too deep. It's not that deep. Just an analogy. So like we're constantly trying to find direction. We're constantly trying to find, okay, what should I do next? I tried this for this while and it didn't work, and I think I'm feeling lost and stuff like that. And what Plan Z was meant to do was to take a person out of that maze. But what I found was that that maze is actually nested in a bigger maze, right? So Plan Z will get you out of a maze, but then there's still a bigger maze, and no one will be able to find that real direction, that true direction, that true purpose without actually considering our origin. And our origin is Allah, right? You can't fully answer the question of who am I. We can I give a shot at it. Who am I? The best things that we can mention are things that are temporary, are things that are not us, that are given to us by someone else. But when you look at Islam and you ask, who am I? I'm a slave. I'm a slave of Allah, right? And that is a very, very stable answer, right? And asking who am I would first make you ask, okay, who made me, right? Because I need to know my maker to know what he made, so he can tell me what he made, right? So going from that, going through that journey, I think that's what second edition of Plan Z would be, and I doubt it's going to be called Plan Z.
Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you for taking us through your journey. I can just imagine going from one maze to another maze, having a stable answer. Okay, that's actually a lot to unpack. So let me not try and unpack it here. It's going to yeah, and I didn't expect a discussion about books to be this interesting, to be honest. So okay, so the final question that I have is that for us, we mere mortals that we cannot even read a book a week,
Ah,
how can we be more
mm.
consistent with reading books? How can we develop a love for books? What
I think
advice
I
do you
think
have for us?
I think the best thing I can say is to read books on topics that you love. So if you love football, you may want to read Sir Alex Ferguson's biography. If you love, don't say that, oh, my friend is reading uh Who Am I? Or my friend is reading Find Yourself, or my friend is reading, Build a Successful Career, and I want to also do the same. If you start reading a book on a topic that you don't love, we tend to generalize our entire experience based on the first experience that we had, right? So try to start with a book that on a topic or an industry that you care about a lot. I care about psychology a lot, and I'm super lucky that first books that I read centered upon that. So if you love read about Alex Ferguson's book, if you love tech, read Steve Jobs' biography. If you love, I don't know, if you love fashion, read books by people that have written on fashion. So try to read on something that you care about. That's the first and most important way. But of course, even if you're reading something you care about, we're humans, right? We tend to not follow through on things that we do. What, what can I say to that? Well, I I think I think maybe having a reading body. I didn't have a reading body. I don't have a reading body till date. I I kind of enjoy reading on my own. I what well, if it works for you, you may have a reading body that you share things that you're reading. Aha, you care about money making. Exactly. You can read books. You can read books like this The Richest Man in Babylon. You can read The Richest Man in Babylon. You can read, you know, that that's the book that I read. So try to like read books on topics you like, and then find someone you can share it with. And if you're able to do this, my best guess is that if you read it on a topic that you like, you're going to find that natural motivation to continue reading. So I think that's what I have. That's what I have.
Thank you, Al-Ameen. I've thoroughly enjoyed this session, and really, I feel like we should just continue going, but I don't want us to eat too much into Zainab's time. So I'll just take some of the questions that other people have asked in the comments. So Mansura asked that we consume a lot of information from books, and some of them have like repeated advice, information, and so on. How do we implement these things? Like, give us practical steps of we read stuff. How do we implement them?
Yeah, good, really good questions. Yeah, question because reading books can be the way drunkards just want to keep drinking to maintain themselves and keep that high. Reading can also be very, very intoxicating. Like, and you just keep reading and keep reading and keep reading, and you find out that at the end, what have I read? You can't really answer that question. So the best books that I've seen are books that have something that I like to refer to as next action or action items at the end of each chapter. So they give you particular actions that you can take. Uh, Not all books are like that, and that doesn't mean that book is bad. I read Lean Startup, I think towards the end of last year or probably early this year by forgotten his name. The Lean Startup, it's a business book. And what I was able to do was to look at, so this guy is going to give frameworks. So I want to know what are the frameworks in these books. I'll write it down somewhere. What are the action items that I should do in this book? I'll write it down somewhere. And what are the, lollipops? I like to call them lollipops. Lollipops are things that you read in a book and you copy them out and paste it on your status. Those are lollipops. So I like to also write down the lollipops because the lollipops will give you ginger. So after I read those books, like I would try to create a framework uh like into my life. So I read about in the Lean Startup, one of the idea he talked about is doing forming an hypothesis, doing customer research, and uh measuring and testing your hypothesis. So when I was really, really deep into growth around that time, so that was one of the reasons I was reading it. So I would look at what is the hypothesis. Okay, our hypothesis is that when we can create a framework for personal growth that can work for young people. That was the hypothesis. Now testing it, we actually created a test group of about 3 to 5 people, and 3 to 5 people. And then we went through that, and at the end of it, we saw that it worked, but it didn't really work. So that was the testing, and then we kind of reevaluated and say, okay, we need to do more user research before we can create another curriculum for this. So again, it's the idea here is read a book on something you are working on, or read a book on something you love, right?
Something you
Or
love.
read a,
Thank you very
yeah,
much for that. Okay, so just one another question. Do you reference research papers that you read before writing your books?
So I've only written one. Oh, I beg. Let's be guided. So, well, what did the question say? Do I reference them before writing?
Yes.
So writing Plan Z actually was out of my head really because I didn't really particularly read any. I didn't particularly read a lot of research papers, but it was knowledge that I'd gotten before. So yeah, that was most of it. But for this, this new one that I think I'm working on, I don't have a choice because it's a very delicate topic. And yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Someone also, Mama Tajidin asked for book recommendations. I think you can type that in the chat if you have any books and recommendation about making money later on. Nusaybah also said we have had a previous session on books. Yes, yes, and that was actually very interesting. So I totally forgot. Yeah, nice. So and tips to become a better reader is to you can also invest in audiobooks. You should also join a book club. So thank you very much, everyone, for the contributions, for the questions. Thank you, Al-Ameen, for making this session very interesting and engaging. And now we can finally move on to our final panelist. But before we do that, we are going to have a very quick and short commercial break. Um, so, commercial break, we have. Sorry, let me. I want to share a new screen. So yeah, commercial break is that next week we have our case study session. And sorry, as the deputy lead of the case study team, I have to come here and plug our session. So next week we have a case study session. So what is the idea of case study? The idea of case study is to help us build leadership skills. Okay, maybe I should have even done this commercial break after Omoniyi's session since it's about leadership. But yeah, since we want to build leadership skills, this is a practical opportunity for us to like dip our legs into the water. We take real life situations and we discuss them. If you are in this situation, how would you develop? How would you? What decisions would you take? And this is the same way that the top business schools in the world, this is how they build people's leadership skills. And so the aim of the case study session is to bring this method from top business schools, to bring it to NGM so that we can develop better business leaders for the future. And we have also invited someone who has experience in the real world to come and help us dissect this case study. So she will not be doing it alone. We will all be doing it together. I believe for those of us that are in NGM, we have seen the link on the group. But if we have not seen it, we can check the messages again. We will definitely post it again. So when we see it, we can register for the session and get prepared for it. So that brings us to the end of the commercial break, and now we can go to our final speaker. So our final speaker is Zaynab Solahudeen. Zainab is a medical student and she's a poet. She does spoken words, poetry, and Zainab is going to come here. Zainab is going to tell us our story. So I hand over the floor to you, Zainab.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Zaynab Solahudeen. I'm a part 5 medical student of University of Lagos. I'm a writer and I'm a spoken word artist. Actually, I'm a newly acclaimed spoken word artist. I recently just owned up to being called a spoken word artist this year. I wasn't a spoken word artist all along. I was just an enthusiast. For the large part of my journey, I was just enthusiastic about spoken word poetry, and people thought I was an artist, but I wasn't. But, Alhamdulillah, somehow, towards the end of last year, I had to own up and I had to just take up the mantle to becoming a spoken word artist. So I'm still trying to like process at the earliest part of this year. I was still processing the realization and the expectations that come with being a spoken word artist, and it's still quite new to me. Title is still quite new to me, so I'm very optimistic, and I really um I would try. I really look forward to working to the journey to become a spoken artist in the coming years. Okay, so firstly is that how did I become? Sorry, sorry. I don't know why my Google Meet has been acting up. I get logged out, I think, every 20 minutes. So I was supposed to have stated that before I started, but I got logged out and in like 2 seconds I'll log in back. So I'm sorry about the remission. So yes, a how did I get into spoken word artist? Spoken word poetry. Sorry, what was my first exposure into poetry? How did I find poetry? So yes, my first exposure to poetry was when I was in junior secondary school. I went to a secondary school that literature was one of our major courses. So I did literature for like 4 years. I did literature being a science student. We took exams in literature. We took presentations in literature, and I found it quite fascinating. I found it quite interesting. Everything about literature, the literary devices, the use of literary devices like paradox, oxymoron, euphemism, all of those interesting stuff. I found them really fascinating. And there was a time when I was in GS3 that we eventually learned our first poem, and naturally, anything that is lyrical tends to like stick in my head. So I memorized the poem in the span of like a week, and I was asked to recite it on our ceremony. I mean, our graduation ceremony from just one, and that was it. It didn't mean anything much to me then. Just and it was is up until recently this year that I kind of like reflected back on my journey, and I was like, okay, I think that's where it all started from. So fast forward to senior secondary school, I moved to a Muslim school. I took like a long break from poetry or literature or anything related. I was focused on just gaining admission to study medicine, and that was the crux of my 3 years before entering school. And then I gained admission, 100 level, we're trying to cross over. I didn't have time to, I didn't even, like the thought did not even come to revisit poetry or to revisit literature, but things that I really love to do before I got gained admission to school. 200 level, I was, if you know any 200 level medical students, you know they are usually very clueless in the first part of the journey. Very clueless. I was so clueless about how to navigate this new mantra that I have understood and in being medical students, because everything is different from what you've been used to. The reading style is different, the environment is different, everything is just different, and you have to blend in. So I did not even have time then to look at any other thing for any serious extracurricular activities or even social media, right? So fast forward to 300 level, and some I 300 level was also a very difficult class, and but I still had breathing space in that I was already used to the system, and I stumbled upon I was okay, yes, I was a very passionate student. I was a very passionate Muslima. I had so many unanswered questions from secondary school about Islam. I was always like, why are Muslims like this? Why do we have narratives like this that are yet to be corrected? Like, why do we have so many questions? Why do we have so many people falling out of Islam? I mean, it was always a thing of worry then when I was in tertiary level. And I just stumbled upon a poem by Natasha Hooper. I think quite a number of us will know the poem. It was on Islamophobia. And I was like, okay, so there's a thing as Islamophobia. Then I read more about it. I was like, okay, so there's even internal and external Islamophobia. I mean, we Muslims, we have internal, we have amidst all of us, amidst Muslims, right? We have people that are quite phobic about Islam that um do not like own up to being Muslims. They shy away from anything Islamically related, and then they're just Muslims by name. So I was like, okay, this is a good reason why I need to watch. So I watched the video and I was glued. Like that was the turning point. It wasn't even secondary school. It wasn't anything. That was the turning point. So what I could make of that was that I moved from reading to watching to like performing. So I was in all through secondary school, I was just taking all the content in. I was taking everything about literature in. And then when I got to the stage that I needed, that I more like you learn something and then you are practicalizing it. So I saw videos. I saw the video on Islamophobia. And as usual, it stuck in my head. Got stuck in my head for years. Like I was always reciting it, always reciting it. And then I went forward. I checked like just usually when you see a movie and you are glued and you proceed to reading more about them. So I went on and I read about Natasha Hooper, and then I saw that she was even a Christian, and she was the goal of the video was to propagate the fact that Islam is actually not terrorism. Islam is jihad basically, and that's not terrorism. Like they're two different things. And I felt like you needed to understand Islam to a very large extent for you to defend Islam that way. And coming from a Christian, that I think our dad was even a pastor. I was like, okay, I think there's something more on poetry. Like poetry cuts across, irrespective of your personal differences, irrespective of your reservations towards anything. Poetry just stands for the truth, and the truth will always prevail. So they were there campaigning for Islam. They were there advocating for Islam, and it was so passionate that I just had to like read more. Make more research about her, and then she was my number one. She was my icon then that year. I think 2019. So yes, I and I was also at the time I was also in a phase of moving from music because like I said, anything lyrical kind of like speaks to me a lot. Like I tend to flow with anything that's lyrical. I was going through I was just realizing that okay, music was haram, and I was like, okay, so if I'm going to leave music, why exactly is music haram? They're like, okay, because of the beats, right? And also because of the fact that it can take away the remembrance of Allah. I mean, the purpose of Quran, like music can really dominate your heart that you totally flee away from the remembrance of Allah. And that made sense actually, because practically I could tell as at that time that, oh yes, that's actually very true. I mean, very true. Sorry, like everything that Islam says is actually fact. So I was like, okay, if I'm dropping music, what am I using to replace the void? Because I just have to hold on to something so that I don't bounce back to music. And poetry was something that I could use as a replacement and I do not regret investing my time and my emotions or my like I do not regret investing it into poetry because it has really replaced music for me in ways that I never could think of. So music is something that what differentiates music from poetry is that music is something that like you just keep doing it. You would not you initially just say that, oh yes, you are a music lover, you have the artists that you follow, you don't follow the ones that sing rubbish, but eventually you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, and there's no stop. Like you eventually follow because it just drags you in with the beats, it drags you in with the melody. The content there is nothing to hold on to. The content there is, and it's usually a reflection of who the person is. Like you can it's very evident in the kind of the genres of music that we see these days and the style of music that we see these days, like, and it's like an instrument is a very destructive to society. So why was poetry a replacement? Poetry, in the sense that I already, I made an analogy of um the lady that was a Christian and then was advocating for Islamophobia or change about narrative in Islam and all of that. I've been to slums that I would see different people with different backgrounds, different different backgrounds, different reservations, different things that they hold on to. In fact, like they would even usually have an after party after the Islam. But irrespective of that, they will still, when they get on stage, when they hold the mic, what they are saying, they are speaking the truth. They are not letting their personal beliefs or their intricacies. They're not letting infiltrate. They're not letting it infiltrate into what they say. So poetry was usually a form of advocacy for me. It was always a form of expressing yourself. It was always a form of entertainment because there's some things like literature itself cuts across different things. It can be satire that has to do with comedy. It could be an hyperbole an hyperbolic form that would exaggerate everything in your eyes, and you're like, what's going on here? You get so it was those things I found them very fascinating, and I mean, I just was always carrying. I was always into poetry. I was always really passionate about it. I found it as something that I could use to like an escape out of music, and alhamdulillah for where I am now. So I never even saw it coming this spoken word. I never saw it coming. I never. I knew that there would be. I knew that it would. I had the clue that it would happen, but I mean, I didn't just know I was going to play out. I didn't. I was not ready yet because there are different types of spoken word artists. So while I was doing my research, I started from global. So I found out that there were global poets. Then I moved to regional. I went to Africa. So I saw that majority of the African persons that we have are from Sudan. And they're probably refugees. They're always advocating for the fact that they've been displaced, they're minors, they're going through a lot, all of that. The those that are from the global scale are usually blacks that are usually terrorized through racism and all of that. They are always advocating for that. And then I went to Nigeria, I realized that there was a gap in the level of exposure that spoken word artists had. I realized that we didn't have a lot of good poets. It was just a few as at then. But as of now, I mean, things are really evolving now, and poetry is even like seen as one of the forms of entertainment. And aside from being, I mean, people like entertainment, so the only way poetry can thrive, aside from the advocacy part, because some people think poetry is boring. I mean, that to me, I feel like it depends on how it is being presented. So I didn't want to be associated with substandard content. That was why I just totally shied away from becoming a spoken word artist. But I guess I was just taking everything in, and my teller was just like, okay, now it's time for you to start. Like, and then last year I was reached out to collaborate with someone, and that was how I just um, got involved in and that was how I had a production earlier this year, my first ever production. And for a first production, I was really amazed at how I did. So yes, that's basically my journey through spoken word poetry. And um I don't know. I would say that a major challenge that I faced now is that currently I have to face the reality of being a spoken word artist, and I have a lot that I'm busy with now. Like I have quite a lot on my plate. School itself takes a chunk of my time, like majority of my time. I have other commitments that I'm into. And can I just say that okay, I'm not more a spoken word artist. I just posted that because I had to. No, I can't. I have to keep it going. I have to keep churning out content. I have to keep delivering. I have to keep passing across the message, preaching the gospel. But this year has been a lot for me. I've not been able to. I'm focusing on what I need to focus on now. I'm just hanging on like the last thread. I have professional exams coming up. I have a lot of things on my mind. And like Nusaybah said, it's really hard being a student and trying to do other things that you're passionate about. It's really hard and it's saddening because I mean I feel like other students are kind of they are kind of deprived of a lot of opportunities because of our situation. You have to be fully engrossed in medicine to be a good doctor. You have to be fully engrossed in your school, your academics, going attending your clinics regularly, going making all your requirements. I mean, that alone is another story for an entire day. And retaining the knowledge that you need to retain, talkless of other things that you have to focus on. So yes, that has been my major challenge throughout my throughout this year. That I can say that I'm spoken word artist. So I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Zainab. I have loads of questions. So, but since you requested to talk really at first, so that's why. So, okay. So, I think the first question that I'm going to ask, there's a part I have not fully understood because I'm not into the poetry world. So, as a spoken word artist, do you just like read spoken word poetry, or do you like you write and then you also do the production? Okay, I think she's having a problem with Google Meet again.
Yeah,
Okay, you're back. So
yeah.
yeah, my question was that I wanted to like get this clear. As a spoken word artist, you write poetry and then you also perform it, or you only perform other people's poetry.
Oh yes, that's what I do now. Okay, so that's what I do now. As an ideal spoken word artist, you write and then you perform. Like you write what you perform. But there are instances where you can also perform. You can collaborate with someone and then perform. Probably work on it together. Oh, sorry. Okay, so probably work on the piece together because you have to. So what people say is that the reason why some people feel like you have to write it to be able to perform it, right? But for me, I don't know how I find it easy to perform other people's pieces. I don't know how I do that. But that's what I do for now. I'm currently trying to write something. I'm currently trying to work on a piece by myself. And I think I would say that one major, so I didn't mention it across that. One challenge that I also one challenge that I also faced going into poetry was that I did not start off as a child, like as a reading child. I was always reading school books. I was never interested in reading novels or reading anything creative stuff. Reading school books, so like majority of my time when I was in my youth, like secondary school days. I wasn't into reading novels because I found them boring. When I gained admission into school and then I mixed and I realized that okay, yes, you have to keep on. I mean, it's something that you have to develop. It takes me conscious effort to actually stay from the beginning to the end of a book. It takes me conscious effort to do that. So it's quite ironic because for a lot of people that are writers and that poets, they read a lot, and that explains why they have an imaginative and why they are able to write stuff quality poetry. I tried writing. I wrote poetry over the years, but I did not find them as intriguing as I don't know. I didn't find them as really intriguing as for me to post them. I just did not want to, and and that was because I mean I wasn't. I don't know. My writing skills are not the kind of writing skills that you would read like as a creative piece. No. I write medical related articles because I know medical stuff and I'm able to write. I do copywriting because I find it interesting and that's what I'm able to do. I'm not your ideal creative writer that would write a very, very banging spoken word. I'm sorry, wait, because it's page poetry and it's spoken word poetry. I'm not your ideal creative writer that would write a story that you'd be wild at, or that would write. I tried writing, I think I even tried writing a stage play one time, but it wasn't. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but maybe when I begin to share my works and when I begin to get critiques, I would know. But I don't know, there's a certain level of excellence that I always want to reach before I share my things. And I don't know, I think that's something I struggle with. So I don't think I've gotten to that stage yet where I can write a very, very thought provoking poem, right? So if I see anyone that has something and then I collaborate with them, and I know that not every poet has the skill of presenting, not every poet has the manner at which you present or the stage presence, right? So for most of them, they're just like, oh, I performed in a number of shows before I I like over the years because from 2019 to now, I think I performed in like three events, but I never posted them because I was like, I don't know, I wasn't ready yet.
That's interesting.
Sha.
So talking about doing a spoken word production. Well, how does that go? How does it happen?
Okay, so firstly is after you've written your piece and you have fine-tuned it, you'd do it, and I think it's pretty much straightforward. Do go to the studio, have a producer, do an audio recording, and while you're doing the audio recording, you exert as much energy and emotions as you would when you're doing the video recording. So you'd that takes a number of weeks. I mean, you might keep doing it and keep doing it, and your producer would not vet it. You have to keep doing it, and it's like a learning
Okay, before it
process.
can go
So
out,
when
the
person
producer has to approve it. Am I the only one that is stuck? I think the problem is from my end.
So you said you asked the question.
Yeah, so I was asking like, is it that the producer has to approve it before it can go out or something?
No, the producer I worked with was very particular about I don't know, it was very because that was my first production, I had to keep doing it. I think we went twice. It was the second time. The first day I went, I wasn't able to spend as much time. The second day I spent the whole day. I kept on doing it and doing it. So the producer I worked with was very thorough, and it was always, at the, when the way director kind of pushes you at the back end of like creating a movie, they kind of like push you to bring out the character, bring it out. So yes, so that was what the producer was trying to achieve, and that made me learn. I learned a lot in the audio recording. I learned that because I just thought I would just go there and then just read it. And when I'm doing the video recording, that's when I now exert all the emotions and the energy. But it was like it doesn't work that way. You have to exact the equal amount of energy, if not more, because I mean, it's the audio production that you listen to, is what you record, what has been recorded that people
Yeah,
would
yeah.
hear. Yeah. So after you perfect the audio, then you now go. I mean, you even done 60 or 70% of the work by perfecting the audio and the video production. Being that the face of the audio production was like a learning process for you. The video production will just come easy and natural. So that
Okay.
was how.
So someone has a question. I sometimes it's even a writer. So Al-Ameen said, I sometimes find it hard to understand poems. I mostly give up from the first line. How can how can I become better? How can I understand poems better?
Okay, so a lot of people have these concerns. They're always like, poetry is vague. At times, poetry can be deep. Poetry can be, and I think what it's talking about page poetry. So there's page and there's spoken word poetry. A lot of writers are just page poets that just write and post, write and post, write and post. And I feel like firstly, you need to be open minded. You need to, you need to have I apologize for the issues. You logging out every time. So sorry. Don't know when my meeting, my Google Meet is just acting up now. So I said I was trying
Actually,
to. So
yeah, I
I
think we
said
can summarize your answer in 30 seconds so that we can round up.
you need
That's
to be open-minded. You need to. I think you need to quite understand some virtual devices to an extent to appreciate it. But that's not to say that if you don't understand virtual devices or literary devices, you won't appreciate poetry, right? You just need to understand it the way you can because another person will read it and understand it in a different way. And that is the beauty of poetry. I can read a line and then I connect to it in this way that is personal to me. And then someone else reads it and connects with me in an entirely different way, right? So, I mean, I just feel like it also depends on the writer. There's some, I can actually attest to the fact that there's some things I'll read and I'll be like, I don't understand what the writer is writing because of the way you wrote it, or because of the way it was presented. It can be too deep at times. But that's why I prefer spoken word poetry because no matter what you have to present, you have to ensure that you fine tune it to the audience, like what's the demography of who you're presenting to really matters. And public speaking kind of like comes into play as well in spoken word poetry. So you can never be bored with spoken word poetry. You can never say you don't understand because they are speaking to you and they have to make you understand. So yeah, that's like where I think I can help.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Zainab. Um, no, plus this network issue that's actually taking a lot of the time. So we are going to round up. Sorry, Cindy had asked some questions, but unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to take those because our time is fast spent. Um, and well, I don't know what time you are prayer asking in Nigeria, but I have to go prayer asking now. So I think we can round up here. I I don't think anybody will end the call, so maybe people can actually continue discussing. So yeah, so thank you everybody for coming. I have learned a lot from all of these speakers, and speaking about different topics. My mind is just going from here to there, and I also believe many of their stories are relatable. Many of them have started the same way we are starting. They are also students, recent graduates, and everybody here have some experience the way they have followed their passions, how they've I don't like that word, follow your passions. But yeah, how they follow their passions, how they follow the things that they like, how they've developed competency in other things apart from just their schoolwork. In fact, two of our presenters here, both of them are writers. They said they are textbook people. They didn't start from reading other books. But over time, because they have goals that they want to reach, they diversified um, their outlook on life. So thank you everyone for coming. I hope we have learned a lot from this. Maybe Sibiat can contact Zainab personally after this call. I'm very sorry we could not take your question. So we can round up here. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. So once again, I will open the floor again to Daddy if he wants to give us some closing remarks. Okay, I think he's no longer here. So
I'm
thanks.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, I was talking. I don't know. I unmuted, but I think I have two microphones, so I didn't do the second unmute.
Okay.
So I want to say thank you very much. It's time for Astri. I must thank our panelists. They've done a great job. Listening to them, I've learned a lot also. May Allah bless you all. You are leaders today and tomorrow. And I believe a lot of us has been inspired by what we've heard from you today. May Allah bless you all. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursalin. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.